So delighted to welcome to the podcast West Coast Eagles and Tipperary star Aisling McCarthy. Aisling, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Aisling, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself before we get into the Australian side of things. How did you start off playing Gaelic football?
So I probably started off playing Gaelic games like anyone did when they were younger. My parents brought me up to the local GAA club, which is Care, and I probably tried my hand at every sport when I was younger. I was quite a sporty kid, so I would have played a bit of soccer and done gymnastics as well. And then I suppose I just fell in love with Gaelic football and camogie, and that's probably something that I started to take more serious then in my teenage years once I got called up to like Tipperary development squads and things like that. But I had a great time playing underage in Care, my club, and we had great times at under 14 Fela competitions and community games up in Mosney. So I have a lot of great memories to cherish as a young kid playing for my club, and I've been lucky enough then to go on to represent Tipperary then at a higher level as well.
And with the Tipperary side of things, you mentioned that you were involved in development squads. Was that always an ambition to move on to the adult team in Tipperary?
Well, I guess obviously when you start off playing, you're just there for the enjoyment of playing the sport and I suppose the social aspect of it. And they're my friends in primary school as well. And we all kind of played, everyone in my class, and the classes younger than me and above me. But I think, once I kind of started to love the game more and more, I probably took it more seriously. And then when opportunities did arise to represent Tipperary on underage panels and things, I suppose, it was my ambition to probably go all the way and play on the adult team. And in 2008, I was only 12 years of age. I actually got to play in a halftime game of when Tipperary were in the intermediate All Ireland Championship. So just having a day like that, I suppose it really opened my eyes, and I had real palpable role models that were so local to me as well. So I think things like that really drove me on, and that's when I suppose one day I really wanted to be one of those girls, and thankfully a few years later I got to play alongside some of those girls. So I suppose the journey just started kind of evolving from there.
And you mentioned playing halftime for when a Tipperary team was playing an intermediate final. And then you went on to win intermediate Tipperary. What sort of achievement did that feel to you, having wanted to do that all the way down since the age of 12 and seeing that, and then basically becoming your heroes?
Yeah, I suppose, we had a lot of role models when I was that age, and I was lucky enough to get called into the Tipperary panel in 2013, so I got to play alongside a lot of those girls. But unfortunately that year we lost to Cavan in the All-Ireland final, but I was only 16, so I probably didn't really relish the occasion that much. It probably passed me by a little bit. So I think I was very lucky to be involved in 2017, and I was a bit older. I was around 21, so I felt more probably involved and more central to the team at that age. So to win that All Ireland in 2017 was a really great achievement, and I guess it was the first time a lot of us had won at adult level with Tipperary, because previous to that it was that 2008 final, which was the last time the girls had won an All Ireland final. So it was really nice to win that first final, and obviously again we were successful in 2019, but I think now we want to stay out of the intermediate ranks and hopefully establish ourselves up in the senior ranks now.
What's that like after winning an All Ireland, to walk up the steps of the Hogan stand? Every young person, boy and girl in Ireland, dreams about. What was that moment like?
I think at the time it's probably disbelief, but it's a really special occasion, and I'm very lucky to have done it at both club level. We won the intermediate club camogie final in 2016 as well. So it's really special, I suppose, to win it with your club and people from your town, and then also to win it with Tipperary was great. And it's the biggest stage, and I think last summer when we played the All Ireland final, there was 56,000 people in Croke Park. So I don't think you kind of take all these things in until you sit back and kind of think back of that day. But maybe even while our careers are still going on, we won't appreciate how special those days were. And it will be once we retire and start looking back at those memories that we realise how lucky we were. But yeah, I've had great days in Croke Park, and I've also lost there, and I've lost big games, and I've been relegated as well with Tipperary down from senior. So those are really tough. But I think that when you have tough days, it makes the good days extra special then as well.
It was around that time of the 2017 final, was it, that you were approached by an agency in terms, or a scouting agency in terms of playing football in Australia? Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how that opportunity came about?
Yeah, so it was probably a few months after the 2017 final in 2018. I got a message from Crosscoders. So yeah, it's the agency that a lot of us Irish girls are under at the moment. And the message was just basically asking would I be interested in trialing out for an Australian club. But at the time, I really didn't think too much of it, and I left the message idle for a few days. I didn't really think that it was I suppose, too serious. So I think we were playing championship when I actually received the message. So I kind of ignored it. But then the more I kind of looked at it and thought that it might be legit, I responded, and I just had to send on some footage of me playing for Tipperary, which then they got back to me and said that was all great and that I'd be invited to a trial in Melbourne. So that's September 2018. Me and 11 other Irish girls got on a flight from Dublin to Melbourne, and it was a fantastic week to go out. It was the AFL grand final that weekend, so I suppose we got thrown straight into the AFL world and immersed in how mad like Melbourne is about football. So it was great to see I suppose how important AFL is to people's lives in Australia. And then we just kind of played a few different games out there. We did trials like the combine and fitness testing and things. And then there was a little bit of interest from a couple of clubs, but I didn't know whether I'd definitely get picked up or not. But the draft in October, then Western Bulldogs selected me. So I suppose it was a leap of faith by them. I'd never played the game before, and they're just bringing me across on the other side of the world. But thankfully, I've had two very good seasons with them, and I'm very grateful for everything they've done and the opportunity they've given me as well to start playing AFLW.
And before you getting picked up, so talk to us a little bit about that week's trial. Was it, I take it because there was only 11 of you from Ireland, that it was other people involved in the trial, or tell us a little bit about some of the fitness tests as well and what you guys had to do?
Yeah, so the majority were Irish, and I guess that's probably because of our Gaelic football backgrounds. And Cora the year before had just started playing AFLW, so she probably opened up that pathway for us. And obviously as well, you've all seen how successful some of the men have been as well from their Gaelic football backgrounds. So that was probably the big thing about getting mostly Irish girls. But there was girls from like Canada, France, loads of different places to be honest. But there was 18 of us all together. So yeah, we landed out there and we were quite jet lagged, but we were just trying to stay up and get used to the different time zones. And then the next day we were straight into just learning the skills of the game, some of the basic rules. And it was probably the first time a lot of us actually properly picked up the sharing and were told how to kick, how to handball, and how to tackle properly. And then we did some combine testing. So basically like a 2 kilometer time trial, some agility testing, like vertical jump tests. We did different scenarios on an iPad where kind of decision making and things like that. So I think it's similar enough to what the men would do. I think in UCD and that the underage boys would do these tests for the AFL trials as well. And then we had a couple of training sessions, and scouts from different teams would have been at them, but there wasn't real any keen interest until we played a game. And we played a game against local girls, Australian girls that play AFL at club level, and it was 18 of us versus I think 18 of them. And we ended up actually doing really well, and we scored quite a lot. So I think that's when the heads were turned of the coaches and the scouts, and that's when the interest started to roll in. But prior to that, it was probably a bit of an experiment, and people were nearly a bit wary because none of us had played before. But I think then when they saw our skills and probably a bit of our Gaelic football coming out on us when we played the game, it really turned the head. So that's when we got to kind of talk to clubs and visit different clubs and things like that over the week as well.
So when you got that approach, what was your mindset around the fact that you still want to play for Tipperary and you had to express that to the club? And how did that work out between yourself and the club and your county?
Yeah, well, I suppose, and just in life in general, it came at the right time for me. That summer I graduated from UL as a physiotherapist, so I didn't have college to think about as well. And I was really lucky in my employment. I was working in private practice at home, and the senior physio there, Karen Coughlin, was very understanding of my suppose sport, and she as well said that this is an opportunity I couldn't let up. So I kind of knew with both I suppose my studies and my career that they are flexible. And then once I told Tip that there was a little bit of interest, they are obviously a bit disappointed that I potentially would miss the league. And it was the first time we were up Division 1 as well. So obviously they wanted the strongest panel possible. But, you know, it was an opportunity that they said that I couldn't let up either. And the fact that I was going back for championship worked out as well. So I think, you know what, at the moment we do have the best of both worlds. The AFLW season is over by April. And a lot of them are very supportive of us going back to represent our county. So it's definitely working out at the moment. But as AFLW season is going to grow, I think it'll be a bit more difficult to play both. But West Coast Eagles this year as well are very supportive of me to represent Tipperary. So I'm very grateful for that as well.
And how did you find that 2 years with Western Bulldogs in terms of balancing that? So I think you mentioned in other interviews that you were you enjoyed the life of a pro athlete, and the visa you went over allowed you to just basically focus on football, all the things you'd love to do in Tipperary and in Ireland here, but you weren't able to. Tell us a little bit of that, and living, I suppose, nearly 6 months as a professional athlete, then coming home. How did you find that 2 years in terms of balancing both sports?
Yeah, I think you know, it's the best of both worlds. And going over to Melbourne the first season, like it had a lot of challenges, but it definitely was very rewarding. And you know, you have all the time in the world to invest in sport, and I think, you know, that's probably the major benefit over there. You get to, you know, prepare your food well, you get to recover, and you're all day just getting ready for training, and the next day if you're a little bit sore, you can optimize your recovery. Whereas I guess in Ireland, you're doing all the same type of training, and the sports science behind Gaelic football here and what we do here is the exact same. But I think one of the things is, you know, people's sleep might be affected because they have to get up early for work the next day, or they aren't able to get in that extra recovery session because they are working full time. So I think that's what I found was a major benefit, not working, being able to concentrate fully on sport. But at the same time, in my first season as well, I did probably find it tough that all my time was revolved around sport, and I probably didn't have that bit of time to switch off. Whereas this year I lived in a house with other Irish girls, and it probably was a touch of home, and we had a lot in common, and we could easily, you know, head to the beach and just forget about football for a day or so. So that was kind of nice to get that balance a little bit more. And you know, you kind of like coming home then as well. So the past 2 stints that I've come home, I've been working full time as a physio and playing county, and it's probably just a touch of reality. And you know, I know now when I go back to Australia in November, I'll get to relax again. So it is kind of nice to have, I suppose, the professional athlete lifestyle for 6 months, but also then keeping up my profession as a physio, which I find really important as well.
We spoke to Steve Simons, which you'll hear on the show as well, the Collingwood coach, and he said one of the big things he sees and other coaches sees from the Irish game, especially Irish women's football, is the endurance and the leg power you girls have. So do you find yourself when you go over that the hardest thing to adapt to is actually the ball skills and how you are, you know, with the ball and your position on the pitch?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the Irish have brought something different to the table in all the teams they've been in. And I guess, you know, they are very strong and fast on the pitch, and they've done really well with their teams. But yeah, look, I think the skills definitely is something that we constantly have to work on, and just even getting used to the ball. But once you get out to Australia, you kind of have the ball in your hand nearly every day, so you do get quite used to it. But it's probably as well the game plans. They're a lot different, and it's a very stop-start game to Gaelic football, whereas we kind of constantly wanting to keep the ball moving in Gaelic football. So there's just kind of a mindset shift there when you go from one game to the other. But once you get into pre-season and you're there a few weeks, I think it becomes second nature. But then it's the same when you get back to Ireland. You have to do that transition back into Gaelic football because you've been spending 6 months in a totally different sport. So it's just having the right frame of mind as well, that you're not going to come back like 100% brilliant as a Gaelic footballer, and you have to kind of work on that side of things as well.
You mentioned living with a group of girls the second year was definitely more beneficial to you. I suppose, would there be a bit of rivalry there for those with different clubs, or how was that chemistry in the house there with just Irish?
Yeah, no, the banter is great. Even a couple of times that we actually all played against each other. So, you know, me and Joanne one Friday were having our pre-match meal together, and then a couple of hours later we were playing against each other. So, no, look, we didn't do too much talking. Obviously, we were all really hoped everyone else got on well themselves personally, and we were always hoping that they got on well at training or they got selected on their teams. But obviously then when it came to a game, if you came across them on the pitch, you wouldn't be friends for that split second. But no, as I said, it was definitely did me the world of good living with them this year, and just kind of having that Gaelic football background and trying to like talk things through, because training mightn't go too well, or you might think you did something well, but then I suppose a coach might give you some feedback based on how they perceive the play should have went, whereas you might have a different perception based on your Gaelic football background. So just being able to talk through little things like that was good, because we all understood each other a little bit. But yeah, no, definitely the crack was mighty anyway. Some stories we won't tell.
Yeah, would you have any stories first in terms of that, or even sharing best practice, I guess, with other teammates? So you mentioned some of the Gaelic football stuff and the AFL. Would you be sharing some tips then amongst each other?
Yeah, I guess like even if someone just got feedback, I suppose they might just say like, oh look, this is what my coach said, like what do you think? And like, we could say yeah, or we might say, look, I suppose in Gaelic football this is what we would do, but maybe here this is what they want you to do. So you're just more talking through things, and obviously as well, like it's totally new sport, so just kind of picking each other up as well. Like if a train didn't go too well, I suppose you have to remember, like a lot of the girls come from being one of the best in their county or in their club, and they're probably the one driving the standards at home in Ireland. But when you go to training in Australia, you're playing a new sport, so you end up probably being the one that messes up one of the drills, or you're that person you probably would have given out about at club training or something, but you end up being that. So it's like you have to kind of wear a different set of shoes and have a different mindset. So there was just little things like that where we had to pick each other up if training or a match didn't go too well. But usually it was all very positive, and we just go do extra kicking sessions together, or we'd head to the beach for recovery. So it was really nice to have them there, and I think we all like just wished each other well, and I think we just fed off each other for advice and things.
You spoke earlier about you didn't realise how big football is in Australia, and especially in Melbourne. Is compare it to Ireland and Gaelic football and Gaelic games in Ireland? Is it similar?
Yeah, definitely is similar. It's like it's the sport of their country. It is kind of like the way Gaelic games is for us. But yeah, everything is about football. Like the news is on every night, and it's always about like there'd be some press conference from a club, or there'd just even be at training, there'd be updates on injuries or who's getting signed and who's not, and it'd be every single night there'd be something on the news about it. So yeah, and like literally there'd be at the MCG men's games they'd have like 100,000 between two of the biggest clubs, maybe like Collingwood or Richmond. So it just shows like the support that is there, and obviously some clubs have a bigger support than others, and there's more established clubs and things like that. But yeah, definitely I didn't realise how big in Australia it was until I went there. And then obviously in Perth there's two clubs, so there's a real rivalry there between Freo and West Coast Eagles. So I'm looking forward to that and playing that local derby next year.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that move to West Coast Eagles. So I was reading somewhere that you were kind of deciding whether to go back or not after your first 2 years were up. So tell us a little bit about how that move came about, and was that was obviously a massive factor in you going back to Australia for a third year, and now you've obviously signed a 2-year deal.
Yeah, so I guess like everything this year has been so uncertain. So to even go back and for working as a physio in a hospital as well, so I really enjoy that, and I obviously have to give that up if I head over too. But yeah, look, I decided that I've had 2 good seasons, but I feel like I still could continue to improve and develop as a player, and I just want to see where I can go as an AFLW player as well as a GAA player. So I suppose the sign and trade period got postponed from April till August. So usually it would be around April, but because of the COVID, it got postponed. So it gave probably clubs a little bit more time to seek what they actually wanted, or go after people. So West Coast Eagles had a few conversations with me in July and August before I signed, and I just felt they really got to know me as a person. So they really understood, I suppose, how important Gaelic football is to me, and also how important my physio career, and they're very supportive of being able to nurture both of those things. And I think then just the excitement that they portrayed to me and how potentially I could add something different to their team and how they could play me to my strengths and I could potentially add something different to their midfield. I just got very excited by that, and it did take a lot of thinking through. I suppose it's very foreign for a Gaelic footballer to transfer clubs. Like, you play with your same local club or your county all your life, so it definitely was going through my mind that it was something that is very foreign to me, and loyalty is a big factor of mine. But I think deep down then I thought it was the best decision, so I went with it, and I just let Bulldogs know, and they had to just negotiate a trade. So a couple of draft picks went Bulldogs way, and I went to West Coast Eagles. So I'm very grateful for Bulldogs, and they were very helpful as well in negotiating the trade. So it was all done very friendly, and all the girls as well wishing me well. So I'm grateful to them for everything.
And there's two Mayo sisters, Niamh and Grace Kelly, who play for West Coast Eagles. They were a big part of that move as well, obviously.
Yeah, I was chatting to them as well, and they had nothing but good things to say about the club, and they've done exceptionally well with West Coast Eagles themselves, and they've been catered for extremely well by West Coast Eagles as well, and everything's set up for them, and they've really shown how well they can cater for international players, which I think is something huge. And I suppose people at home and some AFLW clubs probably don't realise the logistics that are involved in getting an Irish player across, and it probably costs extra bit of money as well to have Irish players compared to picking up an Australian girl. So it was definitely a learning curve for both myself and Bulldogs over the past 2 seasons, but they always did try to do their best for me. But I feel West Coast have definitely ticked all those boxes with Niamh and Grace, so I'm really excited to head over now and live with them as well.
It's also going to be an interesting move, moving from Melbourne to Perth to the other side of the country. Was that a factor at all, or were you just so intrigued and hopeful in what the West Coast were telling you?
I suppose the first thing was I like my football, and the second thing was me as a person and things I can develop. But definitely Perth interested me so much. Last year we played West Coast Eagles, and I actually stayed a couple of days longer, and I toured around Perth a little bit, and it really is such a nice place, and it's probably what Australia is like on a postcard, with the blue water and the white sand and the surfers. So I'm really looking forward to living there. Like, it's real chill vibes and stuff. So that's what I did consider, and I haven't really ever traveled. Like, I've never gone on J1s or gone away for the summer, because I've always been at home to represent Tip. So being able to travel a little bit of the world and see more places, as well as continuing to play sport, is something that is really important as well. And being able to now live in a different part of the world, really, and get to explore Perth is something that I'm really excited about as well.
You mentioned your physio. The West Coast Eagles have been able to sort you out with a job over there as well, to work alongside your career, or your football career. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, like, the visas we go out on, you actually can't get any income from any other source, only that your football contract. So it has been difficult to keep upskilling in physio while I've been over in Australia, but there is a physio clinic attached to West Coast Eagles, so they've organised that. It's even just 2 to 3 hours a week, where I'd even shadow, or just if I had any questions, I could get them answered by the physios there, and just see the work they do with athletes and different clientele. So I'm really excited that I have that option to keep upskilling in physio, and that I won't lose those skills, because I suppose I've been on pause with my physio career for 6 months, the 2 times I've been in Australia. So just being able to keep fresh and keep it on my mind is something that I'm looking forward to doing as well.
How did you find working during the coronavirus?
Yeah, so I guess when I got home, we were in lockdown in March, and I actually thought it was a breath of fresh air to start with, because last year when I got home, I went straight into working and playing Gaelic football, and I was probably a little bit overwhelmed at everything getting thrown at me at the time. So being able to have a bit of downtime and spend time with my family was really nice as well. But yeah, I was looking for jobs throughout the lockdown, and luckily I got a post in Portlaoise Hospital come May, so I was welcoming of that, and just having a bit of a routine at the time, because all of us were getting a little bit bored, I think, by that stage being locked up in our houses. So it was nice to get a bit of a normal life. But to be honest, my role as a physio, I was working on the wards in the hospital, and it didn't change whether there was a pandemic there or not. And I see a lot of sick people, if it's pneumonia or chest infections, or else I see maybe elderly people after falls, and I'm getting them back up on their feet and making sure people are as strong and as independent as possible, the same way they were before they came into hospital. So that's kind of the role I have, but it didn't change at all because of COVID. So I'm very lucky because of that.
So you'll be heading back to Australia for pre-season in November. The likes of Lauren McGee have joined the AFLW, and a lot more Irish girls are going over. I suppose you mentioned at the start of the show about them potentially extending the season, and I know recently Peter Lee has kind of drawn a line to say you either do one or the other. How do you think going forward, is it going to get harder for the likes of yourself to balance both playing Australia and playing in Ireland? Because it's almost unreal that you're able to do both at the moment, but it seems like it's kind of going the direction where it'll have to eventually be one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the AFLW want to continue growing, and that means the season and pre-season are going to get longer and longer, which will obviously eat into the time that you would be at home playing Gaelic football. So, I think it is by an individual basis what people's probably goals and priorities are at the time. For me, I'm not sure what I would do, but at the moment I'm so grateful I can play both. And I'm grateful that Tip management as well welcome me back in to play championship, because they're obviously disappointed that a couple of their players are missing for the league, especially being up Division 1 and missing players like even Orla Dwyer as well, playing with Brisbane. Like, to miss her during the league is a big thing as well. So look, we're lucky enough that we have that sense. But yeah, definitely I do think that there will be a time that you'll have to choose, and even some people's professions might suit it a bit more than others. And like, I know I live with Mairead Shoiga this year from Galway, and she's a primary school teacher. So basically she was in Australia for the whole academic year, from October right up until April. So then she comes home and it's the summer holiday, so she doesn't get the actual opportunity to teach, whereas I guess I can come home and get back into a physio job straight away. So I do think it depends on the person, their opportunities they have at that time, and also their priorities. And obviously, as Peter Lee came out, he wishes that the girls would kind of pick one other than the other. But fortunately enough, I haven't had to have that ultimatum put in front of me at the moment. But maybe as the years go on, potentially I will have to choose, but I don't know what I would do yet.
And the last thing then on Tipperary themselves, what are your ambitions for Tipperary over the next couple of years? Because you've mentioned you won intermediate a couple of times. You kind of become a bit of a yo-yo team going back and forth. And I suppose that the aim would be to become an established senior county over the next few years. Yeah,
we definitely don't want to win another intermediate title again. They were great 2 years, but I think the last time we said we don't want to see that cup again. So yeah, look, we have been a bit of a yo-yo team, but I do think, to be fair to the girls, they've been up in the Division 1 league the past 2 years, and they've really shown that they can compete against the top 8 teams in the country. Last year they beat Cork, this year they drew to Dublin. So like, that just shows the calibre of players that are in our ranks, and we are a very young team. So I think playing intermediate last year was actually probably a good thing, and it got adult football into a lot of young girls, and they also got to experience playing in Croke Park and winning in All-Ireland. So I do think there was probably a silver lining to us getting relegated and them getting to experience that, and then they played up in Division 1 and did quite well this year as well. So look, we're just looking ahead to playing Galway in the first round, and they're the runners-up of the All-Ireland Championship last year, so it's no better team to challenge ourselves against. And I think the fact that there's not relegation this year as well, it takes the pressure off us a little bit, and we'll just go out to perform to our best ability, and hopefully that means that we'll get a win. And then who knows, then we've Monaghan the week after, so we could end up in an All-Ireland semi-final. But it is a tough task. Our group isn't easy, but then once we've no relegation, we've Division 1 again next year, and then hopefully we can kind of establish ourselves and compete in the Munster Championship again. But as you know, like, we have some of the top teams in Munster as well, in the likes of Cork and Kerry, so it won't be easy at all, but we're really looking to establish ourselves up in senior.
And then if one of your teammates from Tip, a 19 or 20-year-old, came to you and say, I've been offered a chance to go over to Australia just for a trial, would you tell them to go and grasp it and take it with both hands?
Well, if we're missing another player, I'd probably say no, don't go. But no, that's a bit selfish of me. But yeah, look, it does. I do feel guilty at times when I'm not there, I suppose. And then with Orla gone, if there was someone else to go, like, it really would affect our panel. But yeah, definitely, like, if it's the opportunities there, and it's, as I said, it suits the lifestyle. If potentially they're finished college or whatever it is, and they've kind of nothing holding them back, like, I would say just to go and experience it. And like, it mightn't be for some people and it might be for others. So like, someone could go for a year and then not want to go back anyway. So yeah, like, if the opportunity was there for someone, I'd say to go and try it. But hopefully they won't be poaching any more of our tip players over the next few years. So hopefully then they can probably get a few wins up in Division 1 as well.
It's amazing that you get to live that professional life in Australia though and still be able to play with tips. So hopefully going forward you can stay like that for as long as possible anyway.
Yeah, hopefully the next 2 years anyway, I'll be able to split myself in two for the both. But yeah, we'll see after that then.
Brilliant. Listen, you've been amazing with your time, Ashton. We can't let you go without doing a quick fire round with yourself, if that's all right. So we're going to start off with the best player you played with, and we're going to go from one from Ireland and one from Australia. So a nice easy one to start.
Okay, with Ireland, it would probably be Ash Maloney from Tipperary. So play both club and county with her, and she makes my at midfield. She makes great runs inside. So I don't know if she makes my passing look good or that, but no, she's brilliant. And then I suppose in Bulldogs, Ellie Blackburn, probably our captain. She's a phenomenal midfielder and probably one of the best in the competition. So I learned a lot from her when I was playing over with Bulldogs.
And then same question, but opponents. So toughest opponents you faced in Ireland and toughest opponents you faced in Australia.
In Australia, it's probably Maddie Prosparkis. So I would have came up against her a bit, and she plays with Carlton, and she actually won like Player of the Year basically this year. So she's quite good, and she's still only like 19 or something. So that's fairly outrageous. And then played against. I suppose maybe someone like Louise Ward. So we probably would have only had like challenge matches against Galway in that last year because they're obviously up in senior. But I just think she's a super player, and I would have played with her in UL as well. And she was a Player of the Year nominee last year as well. So she's still young, and I can't wait to see what she'll bring to the table in the next few years as well.
Your favourite stadium? And we'll have to do the Ireland-Australia thing again here. So.
Favorite stadium here probably be Croke Park. It's probably why everyone says, but it is very special to play
you
there.
You have to play in Croke Park first to say it. So
yeah. Semple Stadium as well. That's a nice one. And then in Australia, probably our home ground. It's not like a big stadium, but Whitten Oval, and that's where I made my debut. And it's really special to play there. It'll be packed out with maybe 8,000 to 10,000 people. On like a Friday night, it'd be brilliant atmosphere and everything. So that's probably my favourite in Australia.
Your proudest achievement to date?
Probably the first All Ireland with Tipperary in 2017.
What's your future goals, or have you any future unfulfilled ambitions yet, either at Intercounty or at AFLW?
Probably AFLW wise, just seeing like where I can go as a player, and hopefully bringing West Coast Eagles to the next level. Hopefully we'll get a few wins this season, and then with Tipperary, probably spoke about it, but establishing ourselves up in senior and potentially a Munster Championship within the next 3 years, hopefully, I'll say.
Well, next question: 4 people who make your dream dinner table. So 4 people.
4 people. Who would I bring? Roz Purcell, I like her, and she also can cook a bit as well. Who else? I'm so bad at these kind of questions.
She's a good tip woman anyway.
Yeah. Colm Cooper, he was probably one of my idols footballers growing up. Don't know what the crack is with him. Don't know what crack he'd bring to the table. Myself and Roisin Howard, that I play club and county with, I think she'd bring a good laugh to the table. And is that it, or a fourth person as well?
Yeah, say 4 extra people, so one more person, because you're the.
Okay. Someone that can sing, maybe like Ed Sheeran or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be
Sing a bit.
interesting table.
You might confuse Colm Cooper with Ed Sheeran, though. That's the only thing.
Oh yeah. After a few drinks, they'd probably be both up singing anyway.
What's the TV box set? Your favorite TV box set, especially for people during the lockdown?
Well, on Netflix, I was watching You. A good bit.
Very creepy, isn't it?
Yeah. What else was I watching? I started watching The Fall the other night.
That's another creepy show.
Yeah. I did watch
vibe.
lighthearted stuff as well.
Yeah, and then last thing then, so best advice you've ever gotten?
Probably like get comfortable being uncomfortable. So making sure you're pushing yourself, and then also doubt your doubts, not your abilities. Would be another one.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant way to end. Ashton, you've been amazing. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.